My name is Peter Kolliner. I'm representing my testimonial first delivered in this hall to the Yom HaShoah commemoration service in 1997. The reasons for this, I hope, will become obvious when I'm talking to the younger generation. I have not been to concentration camps, therefore I have no recollection of those ghastly charnel houses. I'm a child survivor. I was 8 when the war ended. However, the Holocaust for me is an ongoing event, and I feel it impinging on my life, and every year its effect upon me are remorselessly increasing. I was born in 1937 in Budapest into a Jewish home. I remember going to a Jewish kindergarten and starting to learn the alphabet. After agonizing considerations, or what must have been agonizing considerations, my parents, to preserve our lives, changed our religion, and we adopted Catholicism. Ironically, subsequent changes to the anti-Semitic laws made this step futile. However, having changed, we never officially reverted back to Judaism whilst my parents were still alive. The war was a mad scramble to stay alive, and we spent our time in hiding. My mother bleached her hair blonde, assumed a new persona, that of a Red Cross nurse, using false documents, of course. My father, after escaping from a forced labor camp, lived with my mother, pretending to be her lover, as my mother's paper husband was a soldier fighting with the Hungarian army. I was entrusted to some righteous Gentiles in the country, in the little town of Police, only to be arrested when some charming person recognized me, reported me to the authorities. As an 8-year-old, I was jailed, pending deportation, but was rescued by my mother, who bribed the jail keepers to release me, and I was sent to what then was called a Red Cross protected house. The house, of course, lost its protection, and I was sent to the ghetto. Again, my mother to the rescue. Dressed as a nurse, she marched into the ghetto, found me, and marched me out, abusing the guards for deigning to put such an obvious or Aryan person as I into such a place. I was then entrusted into the care of a nanny. And here I deviate from my note because her name deserves to be mentioned. She was Etelka Shatner, and she saved my life. At this point, my recollections blur, as somehow I received a near-fatal head wound, probably a bullet, or maybe a rifle butt. I became unconscious and was left for dead. Etelka Shatner found me and nursed me back to health. I was unconscious for about 6 or 7 days, I'm told. In this fashion, the war passed and we somehow survived. Not so lucky were my mother's mother, Shomlo Eugenia, my mother's brother, Shomlo Tibor, my father's sister, Kolliner Gabriella. We remained a nuclear family of 3, arriving in Australia as refugees in 1950. My education continued as a Catholic, and I attended school and university, actively practicing that religion, knowing full well my Jewish origins. In retrospect, strangely, for me, divorcing my ethnic origins and my religion was not a problem. I do remember once asking my parents why we never reverted to Judaism, and their answer was that religion is not a coat you put on when it rains and divest when the sun shines. In truth, the fact was that they had been so traumatized by the war that they were hell-bent on having, at the very least, non-Jewish grandchildren, so that their descendants could be free from anti-Semitism. So we lived double lives. All my parents' friends were Jewish, and in 1967, my father dug deep into his reserves to help Israel, while a year later, in 1968, my parents consented to and gladly participated in my first marriage in a Catholic church. I never saw my parents in a synagogue, and they could never talk to me about the Holocaust. Indeed, they could never talk to me about anything to do with their past, as they brought a shutter down behind them as we left Europe. They even denied me the knowledge that there were some family members who survived. My parents died in 1971 and 72 in quick succession. When I attended to their burial, something, and I'll never know what, made me bury them as Jews. And my father's funeral was the first time in my life I had been in a synagogue. When I recited Kaddish, I had to do so following the rabbi syllable by syllable, not knowing what I was saying or why, only sensing it to be important. When I attended to the arranging of my parents' affairs and disposing of their clothing, at the back of a cupboard I found my mother's Jewish prayer book given to her at her birth, dated on her birthday. And I also found my father's kippah, which I wear today in honor of their memory. These treasured objects assumed an amazing significance when I realized that they had to have been in one of the 2 suitcases we carried across the border at night when escaping from Hungary in 1949. My first marriage having failed, I met my much-loved wife, beloved wife, Babi, and we remarried. I remarried. This time as a Jew, after resuming the Jewish religion. I developed a fascination for my family's past and visited Hungary and Romania, where my father was born. I discovered the full extent to which my family was decimated and rediscovered my family's remnants. I have established the obvious, that with the extinction of my uncle Tibor and my aunt Gabriella, my closest relatives outside my immediate family are but second cousins. I have also found out that at one stage, my mother was pregnant, but had my sibling aborted so as to give Hitler one less child to kill. As the years rolled on, I have developed a passionate love for Judaism. I simply love being Jewish. Yet at age 76, I have only had 43 years of it. I am angry, almost embarrassed about all those lost years spent as a Jewish Catholic, and miss the experience of Jewish childhood and education. I mourn my sibling and my cousins, not because they were killed, but because they had not even had a chance to be born. As a son, I mourn my parents, not only as they died prematurely, but also because the Holocaust experience put a wall between them and me, a wall they were powerless to tear down, yet a wall which I barely realized was there until after they died. As I said, the Holocaust extends for me until today and will continue to live with me whilst I am alive. Whilst I was researching the background for a story I have written for my sons about our family, I went to Nagyvárad, my father's birthplace, and traced the families of all my 4 paternal great-grandparents. These families were the Schwarzes, Bleyers, Sonnenfelds, and Kolliners. Nagyvárad, before the war, had 30,000 Jews, and after the war had 600. I have come across this amazing book, and after the war, published in Israel about the city of Nagyvárad. It is the memorial book of that city, and it starts with Kaddish, tells the story of Nagyvárad's Jewish history, and its last section is a list of names of those who perished. As an act of remembrance, I now want to finish this part of my presentation by reading the names of those members of my family who are on that list. Bleyer Ignácné, Bleyer Kato, Bleyer Klári, Bleyer Manó, Bleyer Manóné, Bleyer Gizi, Bleyer Adolf, Bleyer Adolfné, Bleyer Magda, Bleyer Lili, Bleyer Zsuzsi. Kolliner János, Kolliner Vera, özvegy Kolliner Miksáné, Kolliner Miksa. Sonnenfeld Gustavné, Sonnenfeld Antorné, and Sonnenfeld Zsuzsi. The last section is the Schwarzes, and I cannot find their name quickly. Yes, I can, I think. Schwarz Arthur and Schwarz Arthurné. May their memory be a blessing. Since the last time I said these words, almost a generation has passed, and therefore there are many here who have not heard me before, who had not heard this story before. That is why I gratefully accepted the opportunity to repeat my testimony. Also, I bear witness not only to the Shoah, but also to the fact that it did not end when the camps were liberated. The killing stopped. It goes on in my life and in the lives of the living and past survivors, and in our children and our children's children. Much has happened in the past 17 years, which has enabled me, mercifully and happily, to finish on an upbeat note. Since 1997, my 2 sons have grown up, fell in love, married, and my wife Barbie and I are now blessed with 4 young grandchildren, 2 from each of our surviving sons and their wives. So for us and for all our people, recovery and regeneration is taking place. Indeed, now, in Israel alone, a population exceeding 6 million Jewish people live. Our schools are full of children, as we saw, whose parents had not been born at those terrible times, and hopefully for them and for our people, a bright future beckons. But we do not, cannot, will not, and must not forget. Am Israel High.